What happens when everything you've been taught about yourself turns out to be a lie? But I'm a Cheerleader takes that question and flips it into a funny, heartfelt, and surprisingly powerful story about identity, love, and self-acceptance. At first glance, it's a quirky satire with bright colors, over-the-top characters, and a lot of humor. But underneath all that, it's a story about a girl learning to embrace who she really is, even when the people around her refuse to understand. It's sweet and it's emotional. It is way more relatable than you would expect. In But I'm a Cheerleader, we meet Megan, a popular high school cheerleader whose perfect life is turned upside down when her parents send her to a conversion therapy camp called True Directions. The camp, run by Mary, aims to correct her sexuality after they suspect she might be gay. At the camp, Megan meets Graham, a fellow camper who opens her eyes to who she truly is, as they both navigate the bizarre and controlling program. The film kicks off with Megan finishing up cheerleading practice. Afterward, she hangs out with her boyfriend Jared, and things quickly take a turn for the awkward. They start making out in his car, but while Jared is going all in, and that's whole with a W, Megan's clearly not feeling it. To get through this sloppy mess, she starts thinking about her fellow cheerleaders instead. Later that night, Megan's family gathers for dinner. Her dad leads the prayer, sliding in some not-so-subtle hints that Megan should stay on the straight and narrow, and Megan definitely notices. But she brushes it off, pretending everything's fine. The next morning, as Megan heads off to school, her parents stay behind and start planning something. And you know that's never a good sign. At school, Megan meets up with her friend and Jared at the lockers. Jared gives her a goodbye kiss, and the second he walks away, Megan admits she hates when guys do that. After Megan leaves, her friend sneaks into her locker and pulls out a pretty telling poster. After school, Jared drives Megan home, and when they get there, surprise, a whole intervention's waiting for her. And not the "we love you and support you" kind, no, more like the "we think you're a lesbian" kind. Megan's totally confused at first, asking if someone died. Instead, Mike, an ex-gay and instructor from True Directions, steps up and lays it all out. They think Megan's gay, and they've got evidence. Megan tries to deny it, but her loved ones aren't buying it. Before she knows it, her parents decide she's going to True Directions, a conversion therapy camp designed to fix homosexuality. Megan refuses, but cut to the next day, and she's already in the car, on her way, and let's just say, even on the drive, she can't help noticing all the hot cheerleaders around. When they arrive, they're greeted by Mary, the super uptight founder of True Directions, and her son Rock, who is very clearly not as straight as his mom thinks. Megan's parents peace out. And just like that, Megan's introduced to the 5-step plan that's supposed to fix her. Program kicks off with step 1, admitting you're gay. Simple, right? Well, not for Megan. To push her along, Mary hands Megan this weirdly old-fashioned, frilly dress that she's required to wear until she admits she's a lesbian. Honestly, it feels more like punishment than therapy. Hillary, another student and the ultimate teacher's pet, who gives Megan a tour of the house. She lays out their daily routine, the strict schedules, and the endless gender-stereotyped lessons. When they get to the dorms, Megan meets Graham, and you can tell right away Graham's different. She's got this quiet, cool attitude and a rebellious vibe, and she wastes no time warning Megan. If anyone gets caught doing anything inappropriate, they're out of the program. Later, Megan meets the rest of the students, a mix of kids forced into this conversion nightmare. Mary asks Megan to share when she chose to become a lesbian. Megan's still deep in denial, so Mary pushes her to talk about what was brought up at her intervention. Hesitantly, Megan lists the evidence. She's a vegetarian, she keeps pictures of women in her locker, and she's never exactly enjoyed intimate time with her boyfriend. The group jumps on this immediately, pointing out how none of those things are what a straight girl would do. And slowly, you see the realization hit Megan. She goes cross-eyed, her whole world spinning as it clicks. Maybe she isn't the normal girl everyone expects her to be. With zero enthusiasm, Megan finally admits she's a lesbian. The room erupts in cheers like she just won an award, but Megan's clearly not feeling the celebration. Still, step one, complete. Then in walks Mary's son Rock, rocking his tiny shorts and sipping a drink like he's in a music video. His mom snaps at him, telling him to chug it like a man. And honestly, it's pretty clear both of them are repressing some very obvious truths. I think there will be a lot more to talk about these characters. That night, as Megan tries to sleep, she hears strange noises. Curious, she gets up and finds Sinead, another student, in the middle of some bizarre self-administered aversion therapy. Yeah, it's exactly as weird as it sounds. The next day, it's time for step 2, rediscovering your proper gender identity. This involves the girls learning how to clean houses, plan weddings, and apply makeup. Meanwhile, the boys get their own version of manly lessons, fixing cars, chopping wood, and, well, getting way too into it. One guy flings an axe clear across the yard, and during their war reenactment, the cut-out figures they're fighting are just a little too suggestive. That night, the students pair up to develop friendships with the person they choose, and of course, Megan and Graham end up stuck together. They're not exactly thrilled about it. Later, they practice being straight using Mary's flashcards, and the awkwardness between them is palpable. The next day, the boys are in the middle of sports practice when Rock shows up again, this time carrying a chainsaw and a rake. And let's just say, things escalate. As Rock strikes some seriously suggestive poses and starts stroking the rake's handle like it's his big debut, the boys absolutely lose it. Mike, their instructor, who's trying so hard to suppress his own desires, freaks out and scolds them for their inappropriate behavior. The next day, the students sit down with their parents for step 3 of the program, family therapy, and things get uncomfortable fast. Each student has to talk about their so-called homosexual tendencies right there in front of their parents. You can practically feel the awkwardness in the room. When it's Graham's turn, things get tense. Her dad doesn't even try to hide his disgust the minute Graham starts speaking. He shuts her down. He warns her that she better fix herself before she comes back to Switzerland, and just like that, he walks out. You can see the hurt on Graham's face, but she keeps that tough exterior up like she always does. Then it's Megan's turn. She talks about how she thinks she became a lesbian and somehow her dad gets blamed for it. Mary jumps right on that theory, saying that Megan's dad was too emasculated, and that's why Megan has no respect for men. In Mary's world, that equals lesbianism, apparently. Megan tries to push back, but Mary isn't having it. Later that day, we get a quick side moment with Mike. He catches Rock doing something totally normal, but slightly masculine, and Mike, well, let's just say he gets super flustered. Meanwhile, Andre, one of the students, finds a paper plane with an invitation from a pro-homosexual group. He hides it immediately before Hillary, the ever-loyal rule follower, can see it. That evening, Megan finally works up the courage to approach Graham. She knows that family therapy session hit hard, and she just wants to be there for her. For the first time, we see Graham's walls start to come down. She opens up, admitting how much it hurts to be rejected by her own family. But she's also realistic. She's been through this before, and she's figured out the only real trick to getting through this program: just don't get caught. The tension between them shifts here. There is this quiet understanding, a shared experience that brings them closer. You can tell Megan's starting to see Graham in a whole new light. And even though they're stuck in this ridiculous, suffocating program, something real is starting to grow between them. That night, Megan wakes up from a pretty intense dream about making out with Graham. She decides to, take care of those feelings. But then she notices some movement from across the room. When she goes to check it out, she finds Dolph and Clayton straight up making out on the floor. Total chaos. Megan freaks out, starts screaming, and the boys are scrambling, trying to get her to quiet down, but it's too late because Mike walks in. Of course, Megan tells him everything. And because this place is all about punishment and shame, Mike hauls the boys off to Mary's room. The next morning, the consequences hit hard. Clayton gets thrown into literal solitary confinement, like an actual doghouse. And Dolph kicked out of the program completely. The students move on to step 4 of the program, demystifying the opposite gender. And yeah, it's as weird as it sounds. Mary holds this ridiculous class about how normal couples behave, but while the lesson's a mess, something good comes out of it. Megan and Graham start getting closer. You can feel the tension between them slowly turning into something softer, something real. Later that night, Megan catches Graham and some of the others sneaking out. At first, she's hesitant, but the pull toward Graham is stronger than her fear, so she joins them. Outside, a van's waiting. Turns out it's driven by Lloyd and Larry, a gay couple and former True Directions graduates who clearly didn't graduate in the way Mary hoped. They take the group to a local gay bar, and it's like stepping into a whole different world. For the first time, the kids get to just be. No judgment, no weird 5-step programs, just dancing, laughter, and freedom. A woman approaches Megan and asks her to dance. She's nervous, but when Graham gives her an encouraging push, she goes for it. But then Graham starts dancing with Sinead. Megan gets jealous. It's written all over her face. She leaves the bar, needing some air, and Graham notices. Outside, it all comes pouring out. Megan finally admits how she feels, and Graham kisses her. And this isn't some quick, awkward peck. It's real and soft, and everything Megan didn't know she needed. For a moment, the world makes sense. They keep kissing until they realize they've got to get back before anyone notices. When they sneak back into True Directions, the group manages to slip into their beds just in time. Mary checks in, and somehow she doesn't suspect a thing. The next morning, things take a weird turn during one of Mike's sessions. Jan, who's been rocking her own unique style and vibe the entire program, drops a bomb. She's not even gay. Never was. She just likes wearing boyish clothes and wanted a space to figure things out. And when she finally admits she's always been attracted to men, Mike completely humiliates her. It's painful to watch. Jan storms out, done with the whole thing. But the calm doesn't last long. While cleaning the girls' dorm, Mary finds a matchbox from the gay bar. And she is furious. She demands to know who snuck out, but no one speaks up. So she says that. She found the matchbox under Graham's bed. The whole room freezes. And this is where you really see Graham's strength, but also her fear. To protect the others, she lies. She tells Mary she has a crush on Joel, one of the guys in the program. It's the answer Mary wants to hear, and it saves everyone else from getting in trouble. But you can see the heartbreak in Megan's face. Later, Megan meets with her parents, and things get even worse. They tell her, flat out, that if she doesn't graduate from the program and become straight, they'll disown her. Terrified of losing her family, Megan lies. She tells them they have nothing to worry about, even though everything inside her is falling apart. The next day, Mary takes the students to confront Lloyd and Larry. It's tense and awkward. Mary's on her usual saving souls mission, but Lloyd and Larry stand their ground. They're living proof that this whole program is nonsense. You can see some of the kids starting to question everything, but they're too scared to speak up. That night, Megan and Graham fall into survival mode. They started to pretend to be straight, going through the motions of the program. And for the next few days, that's exactly what they do. They participate in all the ridiculous activities, smile when they're supposed to, and try to stay under the radar. But you can feel the tension between them. It's like they're both trying to bury something that refuses to stay down. Finally, the big moment arrives. Mary gathers everyone and announces who's graduating from the program. Everyone passes, except Andre, and you can see it crush him. Joel tries to comfort him, telling him he's more than just a sissy, but Andre's not here for that pity. He lashes out in the most Andre way possible, loud, sassy, and unapologetic. "Ain't nobody gonna change," he declares, and honestly, he's right. That night, Megan and Graham finally give in. After days of pretending, they can't fight their feelings anymore. They sneak off together and share this soft, tender, and incredibly real moment. It's not just desire, it's love and safety and finally being seen. But they don't realize they're not alone. Sinead sees them, and you know that's going to cause problems. The next morning, Megan wakes up to the fallout. Mary's furious. She drags Megan into her office and lays out an ultimatum. Megan can still graduate from the program, but only if she agrees to the adult simulation exercise with Rock. And yeah, it's exactly as gross and weird as it sounds. Megan refuses. She tells Mary it won't work and points out the window, where Rock is fully vibing out, dancing, and just loving his gay life. He's got his headphones on, completely ignoring his mom's meltdown. But the day's not done with breaking hearts. Mary pulls Graham into a meeting with her parents and offers her the same deal, and Graham takes it. When Megan finishes packing her bags and steps outside, she sees Graham standing there with her parents, choosing safety over love. And as much as it hurts, you get it. Graham's scared of losing her family, of being alone, of the consequences of being herself. But that understanding doesn't make it any less devastating. Crushed, Megan leaves True Directions and heads to Lloyd and Larry's house. They welcome her in without hesitation. She tells them she needs their help, not to fix herself, but to learn how to live as a lesbian in a world that keeps trying to erase her. It's this quiet, powerful moment where she stops pretending and starts choosing herself. Shortly after, Dolph shows up. He's thrilled to see Megan, and for the first time in a while, there's a little bit of hope. But that hope comes with a lot of pain. The next day, Graham goes through with the adult simulation exercise with Rock, and it's exactly as awful and awkward as you'd expect. Rock's, well, he's wiggling around on top of Graham, clearly more into himself than her. You can see Graham just going through the motions, her face totally checked out. It's heartbreaking because you know she's doing this to survive, but at what cost? Later that night, Megan and Dolph head back to the gay bar. The place is alive with music and laughter, but Megan's heart isn't in it. She misses Graham. And when she finally admits it out loud, Dolph just listens. He doesn't try to fix it or brush it off. He just reminds her she's not alone. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. It's finally graduation day at True Directions, the day everyone's supposed to walk out fixed and straight. Graham and the other girls are getting ready. Their makeup and dress is perfect, but you can feel the tension. They're playing their parts, but there's no joy in it. Mary comes in doing her usual routine, making sure everything looks just right because that's all that matters to her. Appearances. Meanwhile, Megan and Dolph are on a mission. Dressed in camo, ready for battle, they're determined to save their friends. Well, mostly Graham and Clayton. It's a rescue operation with a whole lot of heart. At the ceremony, students and their parents start arriving. Mike and Rock are dressed up too, ready to put on this farce of a celebration. Everything's picture perfect on the surface, but you can feel how forced it is. As the ceremony kicks off, Mary proudly introduces the new heterosexuals. One by one, they walk down the aisle, heads held high like they've been reprogrammed. And then Megan strikes. She grabs Graham's arm and tells her she's come to take her away from all this. But Graham pulls back. She stays in line, playing it safe, sticking to what she thinks she has to do. And, yeah, it hurts. You can see Megan's face fall, but she's not giving up yet. Meanwhile, Clayton already made his choice. He's off to the side, fully making out with Dolph, totally done with the whole straight act. They're ready to bounce. But Megan's not leaving without one last try. As Mary's about to start her closing remarks, Megan makes her big move. She steps out dressed in her cheerleader uniform, and it's impossible not to notice her. Everyone turns. Mary's face goes from confused to horrified in record time. And then Megan starts cheering. Not just some routine, but a heartfelt, emotional, completely vulnerable declaration of love. She calls out to Graham, telling her exactly how she feels. She's not hiding anymore. She's not pretending. It's brave, awkward, and beautiful. And when Mary tries to stop her, Megan just runs because she said her piece. For a second, it seems like it's over. But then Graham makes her choice. She runs after Megan, leaving behind the program, her fear, and everything holding her back. They meet, and without hesitation, they kiss. It's not just a kiss. It's freedom. It's love. It's finally choosing happiness over fear. As they leave True Directions behind, you know this isn't the end of their journey, but it's the start of something real. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometime later, we see Megan's dad, Peter, sitting in a meeting for parents and friends of homosexuals. And honestly, this is a big deal. This is the same guy who sent his daughter to True Directions, hoping to fix her, and now here he is, standing up and speaking his truth. When it's his turn, Peter introduces himself. There's a quiet sort of nervousness in his voice at first, but then he says proudly and without hesitation, his daughter is lesbian, and he loves her. It's a simple statement, but you can feel the weight of it, the journey it took for him to get here. It's acceptance, finally. It's love without conditions, and that's what Megan deserved all along. But while Peter's finding his way, Megan's mum's sitting there, and she's not there yet. You can see the discomfort written all over her, like she still believes this is something that shouldn't be said out loud. But Peter? He's standing firm. And that small act of courage, of choosing love, choosing his daughter, says everything. As we see Megan's journey unfold, we're reminded of the power of embracing who we are, no matter the obstacles. But I'm a Cheerleader is more than just a quirky comedy. It's a celebration of self-acceptance and the strength it takes to stay true to yourself in a world that often asks you to be someone you're not. Remember, the journey to self-love isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. And with that, we wrap up another exploration of love, identity, and personal growth. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming and hilarious stories about love, identity, and everything in between. And remember, stay true to yourself, too.